Our gospel text today is found in Matthew's gospel, the 5th chapter, beginning in verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It's no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I've come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. This is the word of God for the people of God. Amen. Let your light so shine before people that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Over the years, I've come to believe that one of the greatest challenges that you and I face as human beings living in this world is the challenge to not live a divided life. The challenge is to honestly search out who we are and what we deeply care about, and then to somehow figure out a way to live out those feelings, those dreams, those passions in our day-to-day lives. And that's not always as easy as it sounds. Now, children and young people do it pretty well. I truly believe that's why we enjoy being around them so much, because they are real. They say what they mean, and they tend to mean what they say. Their outer life and action are somehow congruent or harmonious with what they're thinking and feeling on the inside. But you and I, in many ways, learned over the years that that kind of behavior can be risky. So we adapted to fit in. And sometimes we're at risk of losing our soul in that process. No one's ever spoken more clearly to me on this issue than the author and educator and activist Parker Palmer. Parker Palmer is 80 years old now, and he's still writing and still leading, and you should look him up. Our text today is about letting our light shine. And I want you to listen to what Parker Palmer says about that. He says, in times of deep darkness, we not only need light, we need to be the light for others. There are many kinds of light, he says, light that helps people find their way home. There's the light of truth-telling about ourselves that allows you and me to be honest about what we're doing, or for that matter, to admit that what we are doing has brought darkness into our lives. There is the light of courage that allows us to walk the path toward a better world, no matter who says stop. And then Palmer adds, every day you and I can ask ourselves the simple question, what kind of light can I provide today? Today's text from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount follows immediately in that 5th chapter of Matthew, follows immediately from the Beatitudes. In the Beatitudes, Jesus told his disciples how to know the kingdom of God, how to recognize the kingdom of God when they see it, when you and I see it. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. In this kingdom, the world as you and I see it is sort of turned upside down. The values we've learned to cherish are turned on their head. We often see wonderful news as success and wealth and a long life. But Jesus says, congratulations to those who are meek. Congratulations to those of you who are humble. Congratulations to those of you who mourn. Congratulations to those of you who are poor in spirit. The world as you and I see it is turned upside down. God's world is right side up. So Jesus challenges his followers and he challenges us to live upside down. And living that way will make you and I appear to many, maybe even to ourselves, make us appear very naive. It might mean trusting people that we are told we should not trust. It might mean rethinking some of our goals and aspirations as regards what we own or what we think we might be able to acquire in this life. It requires us to stop and take a close look at how we see the world. Jesus did not want his followers to miss their lives. So he was trying to tell them what real life would look like. In his novel, The Second Coming, the novelist Walker Percy wonders if it's possible for us to miss our lives in the same way that we might go to the airport and miss a plane flight. He describes a man who, he says, not once in his life had allowed himself to come to rest in the quiet center of himself. Not once had been present to his own life. So he says, life passed him over like a dream. Today's text moves beyond. It moves beyond recognizing the kingdom of heaven or what it might look like, how we might be able to see it and identify it. Moves beyond that to actually living it out. Jesus doesn't ask if you and I want to be the light. He simply tells his followers, tells us, you are the light. You are the light. Martin Niemöller was a Lutheran pastor when Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. At first, Niemöller supported Hitler. He supported the order that he saw Hitler and the National Socialists bringing to that country. But when the Nazis demanded that the ministers promulgate state policy and ideology from their pulpits, he changed his mind. After he spoke up against that, Niemöller was arrested and placed in a concentration camp, and he lucked up. He barely survived execution due to the Allied intervention in Germany, unlike some people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. In fact, he lived a long life. He died in 1984 at age 92. You may be familiar, you probably have heard his famous, poignant quote. He said, they came first for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew. Then he said they came for me. And by then, there was no one left to speak up. I ran across a sermon recently that Martin Niemöller preached in his Lutheran church. Preached it in 1936, just prior to his arrest and incarceration. And I was fascinated with the sermon because he preached that day on the text I'm preaching from today, Matthew 5:13-20. For the first 5 minutes of that sermon, Niemöller read the names of those silenced and arrested and exiled by the Nazi authorities. And then he said this. He said to his congregation, when I read out those names, do we not think, alas and alack, will this wind, this storm that is going through the world just now, will it not blow out the gospel candle? We must somehow take the light out of the storm and put it in a safe place put it in a safe nook. And then Martin Niemöller answered his own question. He said, away with the bushel basket. This light has to be placed upon a candle stand. We're not to worry whether the light extinguishes or not, whether it goes out. That's God's concern. We are only to see that that light is never hidden away. Niemöller's point is well taken. You are the light of the world. But you know, it's easy to be hesitant and discouraged. Sometimes it's hard for us to see just how and when we can really make a difference. Some of the darker corners of our world, the problems and issues we face in our lives and certainly in our world, often seem insurmountable. But you know, your witness makes a difference. It makes a difference. Showing up for Kids Hope makes a difference. Giving us Saturday to help put meals together for the Rise Against Hunger, it makes a difference. Spending a day in the heat or cold to work on a Habitat house here in town makes a difference. Showing up here at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning to work in the kitchen to see that our church family has coffee and cookies and for our fellowship time between services, it makes a difference. Singing in the choir or playing bells or serving communion, it makes a difference. And even more importantly, because it takes courage. Every time you and I stand up for someone who's marginalized, it makes a difference. Every time you or I say that we believe, that we really believe that God loves everybody, no exceptions, it makes a difference. Every time we live that out, it makes a difference. And you know, I've not always done that in my life. When I was growing up, and it's embarrassing to think about those times, but sometimes it was just easier to stand back and not say anything when a group I was with was making fun of another kid. I'm embarrassed when I think about those times, and there were some. But you know, a few years ago, I had a kind of a neat experience. I got a call from a former high school classmate who was dying in the hospital. He wanted me to come see him, and I went to Our Lady of the Lake, and he said that there was something he wanted me to know. He said, you know, Ken, I was shy and withdrawn growing up, and when we grew up together, and I always felt like I was different from the other kids. And he said, I was bullied and I was made fun of, and he said, in fact, I'd even come out of school when we were in high school, and the other kids would have unhooked the wires on my car so I couldn't start it. And he said, I wanted to thank you because you always treated me well. He said, you were kind to me. You were never a part of all that. Thank you. When he died, he left his money to our church. It was an interesting moment. But you know, thinking back on those days growing up, I'm clear that to the extent that I knew how to treat people, I learned that in two different places. I learned it at home, and I learned it at church, in the Methodist church. My mom and dad taught me to be kind to people. And they showed me how that worked by the way they treated people. Some years ago now, I was over in the Hammond area, and I went by to see one of my cousins who was quite a bit older than me, and at that time he was the head of the Lolly Kemp Charity Hospital there in Independence near Hammond. He was the chief administrator. And we were sitting in his office, and he told me something I didn't know. He said, you know, Ken, he said, when I was growing up, he said, you know, my dad drank a lot, and he wasn't home very much. And he said, I played football in Ponchatoula, and my dad never saw me play. But he said, your dad came to every one of my football games. And then Stanley said, you know, he said, I'll never forget that. Bishop, William Willimon wrote a book on baptism, and it's entitled Remember Who You Are. And in that book, he reminds us of what we learn at home and what we learn at church. Willimon said that when he was in high school, when he was leaving the house to go out with friends or go out on a date, his mom would always stop him at the door and say, "Will Willimon, remember who you are." It was a reminder that he was carrying the family name, that he need not do anything careless or harmful or embarrassing. That's a good line for you parents to remember. Remember who you are. We are baptized. Jesus says to us, remember who you are. Love each other, heal the sick, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. Love each other. You're blessed when you love enough to be poor in spirit. You're blessed when you experience the pain and grief of others. You're blessed when you are so passionate about justice and fairness in the world that you can almost taste it. Our General Conference is meeting in May, and you've all heard bits and pieces of that. And there are a lot of ifs. There are a lot of things we don't know. We're in a wait and see. But it's a tense time for the United Methodist Church. And, I want us here at this church to have some civil, loving conversations so that you know what's going on. I wondered myself this week if in these days to come, without trying to necessarily fix anything that we might disagree on, wondered if we might not say, blessed are people who reach across barriers of race and religion and politics and gender and sexual orientation and theological preference. Reach across those barriers and really do the hard work of peacemaking. It's Jesus' love command that is so central to what we do here together as church. And every one of us is the light of the world. Let us shine, let us shine, let us shine. And pray with me. Dear God, help us to let our light shine. Help us to love a child, to love a neighbor, to love a stranger. Help us to remember who we are. Amen.